Coach Helen for YouFit Studio. Talking about stories again, because I mentioned it a little bit yesterday, because yesterday I talked about what was happening with people right now and why some people's routine is not quite because they're telling themselves, just to recap from yesterday, the reasons why they're different, the reasons why they're not like everybody else, the reason why things are harder for them, the reason why it's easier for other people. I think Sam's printing a Bible, by the way. Oh, you can't hear that too much. It's really off-putting. Why are the printers been around my feet? However, back to yesterday. So, the reason why it's harder for them, the reason why they can't complete things and other people can, the reason why it's more of a struggle for them, and it plays back into a story, right? I mentioned a story yesterday. So let's get into it, because I've got into it a little bit before. And why it happens, right? Because I did a little bit of this some time ago. And I wanted to come back to it again because of yesterday. This is a lot of stuff that's happening. The stories are coming out in force at the moment. It's almost like an adaptation to the situation why the stories have come back. The reason why I think stories have come back is because they're very comfortable. So stories are a very comfortable thing that you tell yourself. Why is it comfortable? Because it's a set of beliefs that you've constructed around the reasons why you can or cannot do something that keep you safe, right? That keep you protected from a fear. So every time you tell yourself a story, what you're really doing is wrapping yourself in nice bubble wrap, in nice blanket, and you're keeping yourself safe, right? You're keeping yourself safe from putting yourself out into a position of fear, potentially from exposure, not in a horrible way, but also just in the way of actually, I'm putting myself out there and I'm putting myself in a position to be potentially judged, or I'm putting myself in a position to fail, right? Or I'm putting myself in a position where I might not live up to my own standard. So instead of doing that, I'm going to tell myself a story or a reason why it's better for me not to put myself in that situation and keep myself safe, right? So what happens is, still printing. What happens is that you start to tell yourself this story on repeat, right? So I mentioned it yesterday, it's a loop. So it becomes a comfort loop. So rather than put yourself again in that situation to get judged, to fail, to not succeed, to not live up to your own standard, you will start to play the loop. Now, the thing is about the loop is that, and I mentioned this before in a previous live, and I do genuinely believe this is to be correct, is that the loop is always based on something that's happened in the past, right? So there may have been a time where you may not have, usually in younger years, lived up to an expectation or not succeeded at something, and it might have been painful, or it might have left you feeling that you weren't good enough, right? And now, moving forward, unfortunately what happens, and it happens to all of us, the root cause of why a lot of us don't do things is because somewhere deep down, we still have that little bit of feeling not good enough. So that little tiny seed that was planted by a previous experience, by us continuing that loop, the reasons why we're different, the reason why we can't do something, what we're really doing is feeding that seed, right? We're nourishing that seed, that thing we tell ourselves that we're not good enough or we're not going to be good enough. We nourish and feed it every time we tell ourselves a story or tell ourselves a loop, right? So what happens is that starts to flourish. So you've got to appreciate, the more you feed and nourish anything in life, the more it blossoms, the more it grows, right? The more it becomes a bigger thing. So actually what you do when you're actually nourishing that center seed, that I'm not good enough fear, you build it into something huge. So you build it into a massive, wall, you could say? It's a wall, or it's a huge barrier, right? There's a huge barrier between you and putting yourself out in a situation of fear or discomfort. Now, the real challenge is, and if you watch any of my lives, you know, Jesus, no, it's not finished. I'm going to finish it in a minute. Oh my God. So annoying. Why? So, the thing is about any real change in life, you'll know if you've watched any of my lives before, that actually, or listened to any episodes, know that the real challenges in life is that we have to push past these barriers and these challenges to progress in life. And if we continue to use the same loop or the same comfort, we will continue to nourish the same fear that we will not be good enough. So what does that do? that leads back into yesterday's episode when I talked about where people are not moving forward and not adapting because they're telling themselves the same thing. They're keeping themselves comfortable and they're keeping themselves safe in their perception by not moving forward. Now, today I want to expand a little bit more, because whilst yesterday that was about routine and moving into a new way of working and living, actually what I'm talking about now is something we do all throughout life, regardless of the situation, regardless of the environment, regardless of what year it is. We like to keep ourselves safe. Now that unfortunately means that we don't always push ourselves forward and develop and grow while we keep feeding ourselves the same loop, right? The same story. It's now not even feeding people. Killing me, right? Does that mean then that you're hampered in growing? Yes, it does. So the next stage is then, because you don't always do this, is how do you move forward? So how do you move forward when actually what you're doing is nourishing and feeding the loop? Well, logically you'd say to yourself, right, well, it's easier, just stop saying it. Now, if you've been feeding yourself that fear or saying you're not good enough for any reason for any amount of time, like a few weeks or a few months, it's almost automatic. You may not even know, this is the irony of this, when I actually work with clients, so sometimes they literally have no idea that they actually do it. They have no idea that this is even inside their head. It's only when you actually ask them to be really conscious of the reason why they fear not being able to change the way they are, or change the habits, or change how they view themselves, that you really get down into the nugget of what it is. And invariably it's about not being good enough. Now, once you become conscious of it, first huge step, if you know what it is you're telling yourself, loop, if you can actually tune into the loop, which is a bit like, for me, certainly when I work with clients, it's a bit like finding the right radio station. It's a bit off, but once you actually ask them to consciously tune in and actually start to really, really focus and get into the tiny, tiny, minute details and actually tune into what it is that they're playing, that's where you get the money, because that's where you understand the actual language and the words that you're using when you're playing your loop or playing your story. Because invariably it is always on a loop. And the thing about that is, A, it can be, right, as I said, completely unconscious, and that can be challenging. B, though, once you get it, you know when you hear it. It's like when I say it's like you've not heard a song for ages, or there's an annoying noise, or there's a tick, or there's a clock or something, you don't hear it, and then suddenly you tune into it, and suddenly you can't stop hearing it. It's a bit like that when you understand your own loop. If you have, I think everyone has one, if you understand you can tune into your own loop, then suddenly you really are able to tune into it like that. When it plays, you go, oh, there it is. Whereas before you might have been completely unaware of it for absolutely ages. Once you focus in on it and actually focus on the noise, you cannot stop hearing it, right? And that means that the brilliant thing is, if you're working with me, you can tell me what it is and we can work on it, because the language whoever you tell yourself is absolutely one of the most important things to understand. I've had everything in the loops that you can think of, like I'm a fraud, I'm not good enough is always the standard one, I will always fail, my parents don't love me, my partner doesn't love me, I'm not respected, anything like that, right? There's always a which means I'm not good enough. Now, once you actually start to understand what it is you're telling yourself, you can start to unpick it a little bit. Yes, it's not getting too deep, it's not like therapy. However, it is understanding that what the loop that you tell yourself can, if you consciously change it. With some clients, I'll literally reverse it. So you start doing morning affirmations that are completely the opposite of whatever it is you tell yourself, so that you can start to learn to recite something that is not what you're actually hearing in your head. Like I've talked about my affirmations and everything else, I've done it, I've been doing it for years. Do I need to always brush up on them? Yes. Do I always need to change them? Yes, because the language and the words always needs changing, because my mind doesn't stay the same, and nobody else's does either. So actually tuning into what it is that you're saying, or the finite details of the words, helps you understand what it is you need to start changing the loop, right? So what words do you need to start using to change the loop and reverse it, right? To almost go back in a different direction and wind back all the negativity, all the horrible things that we all have said to ourselves over the years. We say year, probably this year. However, if you took back, if you consciously sit now, listening to this, watching this, and think, right, of all the really pardon my language, shitty, crappy stuff you've said to yourself over the last, let's just say from February, all that crap stuff, if you could wind that back in time, actually telling your stuff some positive, reinforcing, supportive, self-aware, self-compassionate, all the things, all of the words and the sentences you could do to wind back time, how would you actually feel now, like listening and watching this? I mean, I'd probably feel like $1 million, I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm fabulous, right? Because that's what we do. We always go for the negatives, and that's always someone's loop. That's always someone's story. And the thing is, right, the final thing I'm going to say about this is that I'm quite passionate about this first, as you can tell. But secondly, also, this stuff is always bullshit, right? It's always bullshit. It's never true. Whatever you tell yourself is never true. It's never fact. And when you start to get into understanding it and actually start to even tune in, like I said, to the sound of what you're saying, you will start to, hopefully, I'll say that, with the support of a coach, you can start to reflect on it and go, actually, is that true? When has that ever actually happened? Or is it a fear? And fear is never based on fact, it's based on an emotion. So there's no tangible fact to any of the things that we actually say to ourselves. Why do we say it? Right? Why? No one's ever really like ruined someone's wedding, or I don't know, ruined their life, or lost everyone's money or their own money, or touch wood, never lost a house, right? Actually, the fear of those things though will cause us to tell ourselves those things are going to happen, or we're going to make that happen somehow through a failure of our behaviours and habits. Is that true? Mine aren't. Mine have never been true, ever. Just simply not true. But if I act as if they are, right? There's a brilliant quote, right? The past, this is a brilliant, I can't even tell you it's from because I can't remember. Right, the past doesn't equal the future unless you live in it, right? While you play a loop, you are living in the past. You're living in past fears, past experiences, all the rest, right? The past doesn't equal the future. Like, whatever happens in the future is not, but your fear from the past experience or from how you perceive you back from your future whilst you keep playing the same story or the same loop or the same fear, right? Shimples. Meerkat. Right. So, recap time. So I said this next one from yesterday. I said yesterday, routine and habit for some people. I said it's what's happening right now. What's happening right now is not a lot for some people, because part of this is the stories and the loops, right? Always hold people back. Fear. Always, 150 million%. Fear always holds us back. Hands down, right? The stories we tell ourselves in a way keeps us boxed, comfortable. As horrible as the things we tell ourselves, guess what? It keeps us safe, right? Keeps you from going out on a limb or taking a risk or all those things. It keeps you nice and safe and warm and probably feeling pretty poor about yourself because you've never gone out there and taken a gamble, right? And the thing is that actually it just changes, right? It stops you, it halts you, it stops you from moving forwards, because it always comes down to that little root of I'm not good enough, and the loop nurtures that fear, right? That belief that I'm not good enough. So every time I play the loop, I'm going to nourish that belief. I'm going to make it grow and flourish and become. So I become the thing that I tell myself constantly. I've got a line about that as well coming up, by the way. Segue. So the best thing to do, right, is just really tune into it. Like I said, tuning into it, actually tuning into the station of your brain when you're really going for it and become conscious of that thing you tell yourself is gold. Because, like I said, once you hear it, you can't stop hearing it. And also, which makes you uncomfortable as well, actually listening to it and actually understanding that it is absolute crap. It's never true, it's never real, it's never based in fact. It's only ever fear, which is an emotion, not a fact, right? Is it really true? Did a live on that as well. Is it really? Is that true though? Really? No, it's not. Ta-da! How to fix a loop. Right. Tomorrow, restart your why. Like, why? Not why are we here in general, is a really fundamentally quite deep life, but also why are you doing what you're doing in terms of your health, in terms of your fitness goals, in terms of your career, whatever it is. Why? Just all the whys, right? And then I did promise you food. Food is coming on Friday. I need to get some utensils to hold stuff in though, because it could get messy. It's all right, Danny, I won't do it here. I won't get messy in your house. It's all in somebody else's house, not mine. So we've got accountability on Thursday. Oh, this is the one, right? Are you eyeballing snacks? With props. I've got some food props. Might play a game of how many calories is this? See if you can win that one. So yeah, join me for that. Not going to give anything away other than the fact there's peanut M&Ms, which is my favourite coloured food of all time. So join me for that one. Have a great week, and catch you tomorrow.